Hello and welcome to the A.R. Bernard Show. I'm your host, A.R. Bernard, and I'm delighted you decided to join me for what I think will be an empowering conversation. If you like what you hear, please make sure to follow, subscribe, and share. My guest today is a Tony Award-nominated actress who made her directorial debut on Broadway for August Wilson's The Piano Lesson. Her career on stage and screen spans over 30 years. She's the mother of one very talented daughter and the wife of Oscar-nominated actor Samuel L. Jackson. Welcome, the lovely and extremely talented LaTanya Richardson Jackson. LaTanya, thank you for joining me today at the intersection of faith and culture.
Thank you so much for having me. It is my honor indeed to sit across from you, someone who in my community and in our world we esteem so very well.
Thank you for those kind words. I hope it draws more people to watch us,
It's
of course. But the last time we were together, we were at West Angeles Church in L.A., and it was a church service. We hadn't seen each other for a while, and it was a wonderful gathering. And it brings to the opening question. Let's talk first about the role of faith in your life and in your work.
It's the basis of everything that I am and everything that I do. I was brought up in the church in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've gone from AME, where I was raised in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, to now Kojic, to Baptist, non-denominational up at when I was living here in New York, Abyssinia Church with Reverend Butts, so I've been through the gamut of the different levels of organized religion. But the whole point of it for me was my faith, and which is why I was constantly, wherever I was, looking to align myself with people who had similar interests and who were of the household of faith. I just believe. I think that when I was 7 years old, I tell people, oh, I know I saw Jesus. Trust me, that's the only reason I'm still alive. Because I remember in my bedroom in Atlanta, Georgia that day, like looking, and I have since tried to assign the apparition to something else, like a box, or maybe it was just but I'm like, no, why am I going through that? I know what I know that I know. Yeah. And it's my faith. I really do believe in holding on to it and it moving me through navigating the earth. I believe that there is a Jesus. I believe that he died for me, which when I am talking to my friends who are of different faiths, I said, but if it's a story, it's the best story ever told, because who else got on a cross and died for me? So I could be that selfish. I'm like, oh no, I'm going with this guy. Because if he would do that, then I have to believe. So I just do. And it has served me well. And I'm still alive. I'm 74 years old. I'm still alive.
I like the fact that you're very secure in speaking about your faith, because it doesn't always translate well in your line of work and in the environment, the culture that you're in, which is Hollywood. Christianity and the Christian voice is being marginalized today for some good reason, but also for some bad reasons. Have you had challenges living out your faith in the context of your work?
You know what? Because I am such a staunch believer and I am so grounded in it, God told me that he was cool. So I said, well, I'm cool. And that's what I tell people. I said, look at me. Do you think that, look at my life. My life is great. My life has always been great, and I have always been great in it. Did I smoke weed? Did I do all this in college? Yeah, I did all of that too. But I'm telling you, I was always in a Bible study. And as horrible as it may sound, I want people to understand, God meets you wherever you are. And that's what I would be sitting there. Like, everybody was, no, but we saw her smoking weed. I said, what does weed have to do with it? That was just a phase in my life that I felt that everybody else was, involved. I got involved. Thank God I didn't die. And I think I didn't die because of God. I think that I didn't get crazier because of God. I think that I didn't lose my mind and become a drug addict or get riddled in any situation that would have killed me because of my faith, because there was something always there that pulled me back. Or, like I said, though, I would be smoking a joint, looking at the Bible, okay, because I just felt anchored in it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the right word. It becomes an anchor for your soul. And it's not like you have an experience with God and then all of a sudden your life is on the straight and narrow from that point on. It's a journey. We live life on levels. We arrive in stages. We experience life in seasons. And we're exposed to so many different things. So we're constantly trying to translate our faith into the experiences at each level of life. So I get it. I understand. And it's nothing that you should be ashamed of in any way, because some people feel that because they don't live up to some religious standard while they're on this journey, that somehow they lost their faith. But even doubt, questioning, that's all part of the journey.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for establishing that as the anchor. Now, an incredible career. And the first question I have to ask, and it's still in line with faith, because I'm sure that there have been times when you've been asked to take on a role that may be antithetic to your beliefs, to your values, socially, morally, spiritually, politically. Have you been in a situation like that? And if so, how do you inhabit that character?
I'm trying to remember an instance. It would have had to be a film, because that would be the most egregious thing now, I don't know, people get naked on the stage, but in a film, I was trying to remember if there was ever a time when I was even approached for that. That just never was the trajectory of my interface in the business. Mm-hmm. I don't think, like I was talking about smoking weed, but I do remember being offered a part on a show that I turned down because of my daughter, and I said, I don't think that's a good look for me to be on the show doing that and selling drugs on television, even if it is funny. There's something about it that just didn't sit well, so I didn't take that job. But otherwise, I haven't really had a lot of offers that were, I thank God for that. I haven't had a lot of offers that were antithetical to who I felt I could be. I really am trying to be righteous. I fall short all the time, but I look for situations, or I try to align myself into situations where I will not, grieve the Holy Spirit.
But you're an actor. You play a role. You take on a character that's not necessarily who you are in real life. And I'm sure that there are, actors that I know and I've spoken to, and they have to reconcile whenever they are taking on a role or a character that is totally opposite of who they are in real life.
I think that if they can do that, then fine, because it is acting. It is a role. But what's the point? Some things occur that are just salacious and they have no meaning. It's just, any gratuitous sex or, something, let's just get naked. It's like, okay, where's this going and what's the point? Because if it doesn't serve a point and it's just for a visual, then you shouldn't do it. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. And yes, the human body is beautiful, but there's certain aberrant behavior that can cause it to be a situation that might influence some younger person or another person to feel that they can go into the street and do what you did on that screen. So the question is it something that has any redeeming quality in the end to say, this is not who we want to be, or this is not, you don't even have to, I always say, is it God's best? I know it's not God's best, so do I want to do that? I guess people have to, grapple with that. Some people don't, because the moral compass is not so defined in that particular way. So I haven't had that experience. I thank God for that. I'm telling you, He has ordered my steps.
But there's a sensitivity that you seem to have that not everyone who's watching a film can separate between what is fiction and what is real life. And they tend to immediately think that what they're seeing on the screen is reality.
That's a gift. That's just part of what God poured into me. I know he poured a lot into me, which is why I'm sitting here talking to you, because I feel responsible if someone calls me to say, okay, get up and go speak about it. Get up and go do it. Get up and answer them. So I would not, if someone wants to do that as part of their acting experience or as part of their theatrical experience, then that's something that they have to deal with within themselves, because you may be an actor, but you're still a human being. You're a person. So you have to go home with yourself at night, because the acting has to stop.
Right.
So when the acting stops, who are you left with? What consciousness? It's hard enough to put a role down. You work so hard and give yourself into something. We were doing something with Intersecting, spell number 7 at the Public Theater, and I had to have a baby on the stage, and oh God, we were racked doing spell number 7 was a very kind of, they were poems, but they were deep into the culture of what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. That's how Zaki wrote. And every night we would have to go out. It would take a long time to decompress from that. But I was young, so you're a little more flexible then. But God makes most of his people flexible, so you could get out of it. People who get caught in it and end up, to their detriment, harming themselves in a way from a role, it's something else going on mentally in that particular situation. And like I tell all the young people, okay, understand this. This is my thing about faith in God and being able to talk about it. The crazies come for everybody. This just crazy. The world is crazy, and the crazies come for everybody. Now, when it comes, I'm just trying to offer you some place to put it. And I'm telling you, go with the man that got on the cross. That story, that's the best story you could go with, and find out who that was, who he is, what that's about. Because you're going to need some place to put your crazy. And that's where I have always put mine. It has always kept me sane in situations that I have genuflected on the floor before the Lord in some situations. I tell people all the time, I said, listen, one time I had a villa. You know how big a villa is? I had a villa in hell. And every room I went in was hell. It was like, what? Because I'm married. And it's not always, it's not always that storybook thing. But God, he gave me a place to know that I had somewhere to hide, that I had somewhere to run, that I had somewhere to go to. So it's the basis. My faith becomes the basis of everything I am, of everything I do.
But you also have an identity. I mean, an identity that seems to be informed and shaped by your faith, because it's difficult to lose yourself when you are clear on who that self is. Even when you take on a role, become a character, get into the character, right? You can come back to yourself if there is a solid self there waiting for you to come back to. And some people, they have not resolved the identity crisis. And if you're in acting and you haven't resolved the identity crisis,
and 80% of actors have not.
Yeah, that's it. So it leads to my next question. What you've learned about humans, about human nature in the practice of your craft.
You learn a lot, because acting affords us an entree into the world in different environments, in different cultures, in different communities, in different classes, in different levels of thought. It's so all-encompassing and huge that you can go into it and learn a lot. So coming out of it, it's not easy. But like I said, I don't know. That's a hard question.
But you're answering it. You've expressed that your faith has given you certain guardrails. You have a moral compass. You have a value system that has guided you throughout your life that informs you as to how far you will reach in to something in terms of how it may lead you away from your central identity, the anchor of your faith. That has come through. You've expressed, while answering the question, things about human nature, about people that you've learned along the way. So you say you don't know how to answer the question, but you're answering the question. Mm-hmm. I'm listening carefully.
I just love the theater. I love cinema. I love acting.
Why? What
I
is it about it that makes you love it so much?
It's changeability. How you can change. How there are 500 different ways in a day for you to be. Because I just liked changing characters in a day. You know, I grew up that way. I just grew up. I was always the one that, hey, this is what we're going to do. Hey, you know what we're going to do? Hey, that was me. And so my friends who because I go to Atlanta a lot. And so my friends always say, oh my God, you used to try to make us do all this stupid stuff. I said, but we were having fun. Were we not having fun? We have had fun. So I'm a fun Christian. And I have always, I guess, been. Don't ask my husband that, but.
Well, I won't ask you how you had fun, but the fact that you had fun and identify with your Christian faith, because there are those who think that, when you become, like they say, religious, all the fun leaves, that you don't enjoy life like a normal human being. But that's not what you're expressing.
No, because there are safeguards there. There are safeguards put in place so that you don't, wild out, so that you don't get so far. Because there's something that you become convicted after you. It's in there, and I believe that's part of the faith, that how God protects us. He puts angels around us. He has a situation so that you make a choice. You're always presented with the choice, mm-hmm. that you feel, that you're never just left out there in the world wilding out. Now, if you decide to do that, that's your choice. You just chose to say, okay, I'm going over this ledge. But I always feel that I am told, there's a ledge. You're at the ledge. Mm-hmm. Now, this might be far enough. You decide to go past that, then you got to be responsible for that. There are consequences.
Yeah, but you're taking responsibility. I mean, many people want to blame everything and everyone else for what's happening in their lives, and they take on a victim posture. But you take responsibility when you say that our lives are composed of our choices, and our choices determine our destiny. So it's in our power, for the most part, because there are other people's choices that do affect us in some way. But, at the end of the day, we're making choices in terms of where we're going to go, who we're going to be with, what we're going to do, what we're going to say, what we're going to think. And we are a product of all of those choices that we make along the way.
But that's what's so great about acting, too, and being in that world. You get to make a lot of choices, a lot of different kinds of ways, being different kind of people that are not real. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But you played it out. You've done it, and the consequences were not as great because it's not real.
Let's talk about family. You are a powerhouse family. Yourself, very talented and successful. Your husband, Samuel Jackson.
Who has an Oscar, by the way.
That's right. Oscar winning.
Nominated and Oscar. Listen, the Governor's Awards, I tell everybody, the Governor's Awards are the awards that the branch heads of the Academy give out. And for me, I always say that's the better award, because those are all the heads of all the different departments, rather than just the aggregate population, which is a lot of times a popularity contest. But the heads of the departments give the Governor's Awards. That's what Angela just got, Angela Bassett, and Sam has the Governor's Awards. So those are, it's like getting an honorary degree. They're all the rights pertaining thereto.
And that's important. So, Zoe,
has an Emmy.
The three of you are very talented and very busy. How do you keep family together with all of that going on?
We're so small. It's just three of us. You know what I mean? And even though we have my sister and Sam is an only child, we got a partial big family, extended. You know, I have a brother, I have a sister. But we're so small, it's kind of easy for us, and not because we are such strong personalities and individuals that, oh no, I want to be here. Oh no, I want to be here. And my daughter loves New York. She lives here. So it's like, no, we're having Thanksgiving in New York. And even though I would want to be in LA at my house for Thanksgiving, we have to have Thanksgiving here all the time because this is like, we have to share, we have to share. It's hard in the sense that she's an only child. I hate that. I would admonish anyone who's having children, married, having children, however you're doing it, have more than one. Yes, I used to hear that, but you know, we were in the world acting, and I was like, it's just not gonna fit into our lifestyle to have another kid.
Having a large family.
Because
Well,
that's going to be on me. And I'm over here acting at the New York Shakespeare Festival. I can only do one kid because he's not going to take care.
Well, I don't know. I've talked to only childs who complained about being an only child until they met a large family. And all of a sudden, they were glad they were the only child. So it depends on how you approach it. But you're busy, which means that you intentionally schedule time to be together to make sure that you're establishing family values, and you've created a model, obviously, that worked well. You have a daughter who's grown up, and she's in the business herself and doing very well in the business. So evidently, you've given an example of family, foundation, security, all of those things, the socialization that should take place first in family and translates into our relationship with society. Evidently, you've done that.
But that's faith.
Okay.
I felt like, you know, Sam and I used to say that the most revolutionary thing that a black family could do was stay together. So we were both, and that's how we met. We met in the revolution. So that was always our mantra, that we were going to stay together no matter what, because we had to see if this experiment was true. And it has served us well. I know that at the base of that was faith, though. So it has served us well, and I'm grateful for it, that we do have such a strong family unit. Now, at this age, she is like, you know, starting to tell us, oh, no, you got to do this. Oh, no, you should be doing that. Oh, no, you know, so she's starting, and I'm allowing her more than he is. I am really allowing her to take charge of a lot of things that occur in our lives, because he used to call her Zero. He used to say, Zero, you have no vote. We're telling you, okay? But I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I have a good family, that I have a strong family, and that she has lived through that rebellious part of, she was always a good kid though, but she has lived through that rebellious part of church and what that means. I finally, I tell her and her friends, and she has a lot of Jewish friends too, so I have had to speak at a lot of bar mitzvahs, and Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu. But I tell them all that they have to want to be a good person, and that the guideline for me with all of them, and that is God. And if they have the roadmap of Him, to read Him, and that everybody will be okay. It's like, they're all like struggling now too. Young people are struggling.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because you referred to the revolution. You and I are both baby boomers. We grew up in
boomers.
The 60s, early 70s, and every revolution imaginable was taking place in the United States. Political, social, moral,
I was going to take the Shahada
spiritual.
during the revolution.
I went into the nation, But we were looking for something. We were looking for answers. We were shocked to think that the government was not our savior in America, especially with 3 major assassinations, 4 in total. So there was a lot of disruption, and the civil rights movement that was taking place. We were all experimenting and searching for something. What's interesting to me is the parallel between our generation and the millennials. We did a side-by-side review of the temperament of baby boomers and the temperament of millennials. It is amazing how close we resemble each other.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. We were very surprised. We were all, look, we came up with the word anti-disestablishmentarianism. We came up with that word, okay? So, we were challenging organized religion. We were challenging the status quo. We were challenging existing organization that supposedly was moving our, plight along the way. Other organizations began to spring up, the Black Power movement. I was involved in the Nation of Islam. Again, looking for strength, order. I was part of the desegregation program, bust out to white schools. So I was living in my own Black community at home and being educated in a predominantly white community. But this generation is experiencing it a little differently. They have the highest level of education. Income levels are higher. They've experienced unprecedented wealth and upward mobility, and Black and white, but especially within community of color. But they also have the highest suicide rate.
They don't understand it. And maybe you could help us understand. I know why they have no patience, because they were not that close to the civil rights movement. So they didn't have, that wasn't part of their arsenal of how to cope. But because so many of the training wheels were taken off because we wanted to provide them with so much, their voice has become like, I love talking to them and sitting around trying to get my point across to them. And especially when it comes to faith, and like, they're okay with faith. They're like, we're cool, but they are very what we see, and how what they see is what it is.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. They're judging by what they see. They have access to information in ways that we did not have access. The amount of information, everything for them is on demand, which can create a quite spoiled generation of people when everything is on demand because you want it and you want it now. But access to information does not translate into wisdom. And they can be information rich and wisdom poor. And that's what I find they're wrestling with, which I believe we bring. We were there. We experienced it. All the things that they're talking about doing, we did it already. We thought it. We talked it. We organized around it.
Yeah.
The largest portion of those who follow me are millennials, young people. We've been able to connect because I understand their journey.
And you don't preach at us. I'm not a millennial, but I was glad to see the difference in, for me, preaching, if I can say that. I'm just saying that we get to a point in life when, because we have gained some sense of an intellect, where we're not just looking for the emotional reverie of you being a minister, a preacher, which is why I think when you had our Bible studies in California, we used to come, we were all flocking to those Bible studies. Sam never went to a Bible study in his life, and he came to your Bible study because we said, this is what we're looking for. You've trained us in a certain way. You've educated us a certain way. We love preaching because it's a part of our African heritage, and I think that part of it makes us closer. I said, but you got to bring something else with that, and you need to talk to us. And I think that the millennials, they don't like the rest of it at all.
Yeah.
But talking that so that they can understand, that's probably why your flock is big with the millennials, because you explain it to, you talk to us, you talk to people.
Well, that's why we call this program, a conversation at the intersection of faith and culture, because that's where we live it out. Theology doesn't really take place in the halls of academia, in the seminaries. It takes place in the marketplace where the people are. And they're trying to figure out, how do I translate this set of values and beliefs about ultimate reality, about what it means to be human, what it means to live in this world, meaning and purpose. How do I translate that into real life? And those were the questions I had. So I'm just answering those questions that I had.
Grateful.
Because that was part of my journey. And, I was ordained in Kojic. And they called me the flat-footed preacher. They said, Bernard's not going to hoop for you, but you're going to learn something. And I was okay with that.
No, you got to be okay with it, because you saw the vision. It was on the horizon. That's where it needs to be. That's where we need to be right now, to bring all of the people who have come along on the side, for them to understand what this really means and what it's about, or else it's going to perish. We're going to perish.
One of the things that millennials have done is remove the stigma associated with mental health.
True.
That has been a problem for all communities, but especially with our community, and especially with Black men. And it's because we have been told we have got to wear the mask, we've got to suck it up, be strong, we can't show signs of weakness, and to admit that we struggle with anything, whether it's addiction, whether it's our self-esteem, our self-worth. If we struggle with it in any way, it is showing weakness. And we don't want to be weak. We've got to be strong. But the millennials have successfully removed much of the stigma associated with that. We are human beings. Even though we're people of faith, we still experience everything that everyone experiences. We just experience it differently. You had a situation where, and I hope you're okay talking about it, where you played a key role in helping Sam deal with a problem that he was facing and get help. Are you willing to talk about that?
Let me just say this, and I don't know in podcasts if people believe what happens or believe what you're talking about when you say it, but I'm telling you, as God is my witness, which he always is, I had a dream, and God spoke to me as clearly as when I say I saw him when I was 6 years old. And he said, you cannot leave him in this addiction. He didn't say it wasn't addiction. He said, you can't leave him sick. Stay with him, and I'm going to show you what to do to help him get out of it. And then you can decide to do whatever you want to do. I promise you, that came to, I saw that, and I have never forgotten that. And I said, because my whole thing was, oh no, I'm not living with this. This is madness. This is too, are you crazy? Yeah, you are crazy. But so I said, okay, I got a daughter, and I was raised by my grandparents who, people who, in a house where people, if they were drinking or something, that was like, nobody was, none of that. It couldn't be done in our house. So that's inside of me. So I'm like, oh no, you're gonna be a crazy person, a drug addict? You gotta go, because I got a daughter to raise, and we're not having that. I don't come from that, we're not having that. And I had that dream, because I was trying to figure out, okay, where am I going? And so I said, okay. I called his best friend, who was a doctor, that he grew up with, best man in our wedding, and he said, okay, can you let him stay there? We were in our brownstone, always blessed in our brownstone here in New York, and Alan said, LaTanya, I'll get him out of there, but don't put him out tonight. I said, how am I going to stand here with a crazy person? I'm like, he said, just, he's not bothering me.
I said, it was alcohol, right?
He was an alcoholic drug addict.
Okay. So it's a combination of drugs and alcohol. Okay.
And he spent the night, the night passed, and the next morning, Alan called and he said, I can't get him until tomorrow. So you got to keep him one more day. And in that time, the next night, I had the drink. And it was like, okay, so what does this mean now? because I was getting ready to pawn him off to Alan. Alan said, here are the programs. You all have insurance. Thank God for insurance then. It was really great then at SAG. Insurance, I'm going to put him in a place that's near New York, Darien, Connecticut. Mm-hmm. He's going to go in there. They're going to pick him up, blah, 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 blah. And that's what happened. And I'm thinking, okay, he's got this rehab program he's in 28 days plus a follow-up. It's a 28-day plus a follow-up week that you have to go back and forth. There I sat with my 7-year-old daughter in these meetings when we had to go listening to this craziness, like all the people. And he said, when we were in school, she used to smoke weed, she used to do drugs, and then she just one day walked away. I said, and they said, because she doesn't have an addictive personality. And I said, yeah, and I was trying to be off, like, zonks. I'm like, that wasn't my energy. It never was. I said, so, no. And I found out that he resented that I could just walk away like that from it. I said, okay, whatever. And the conversations that we hadn't had, he started to have in there, and it was like, okay, but you're still gonna have to go. Once you get well, you guys still have to go, but it didn't happen. The more he went through the program, and the more when he got out that I was really trying to do what God said, you got to help, you have to be a helpmeet, you got to be there. And you know what? And one day I realized, I said, I know this is my husband. I thought that meant a lot more than what I was going through. And I realized, I said, but he is my job. I said, he's my job.
Wow.
So there I was. It was like, come on, because I got to go to work. We're doing this, we're doing that. And it just, one day turned into the next day and the next day, because I was on my job now. Next day, the next day. And it just, one day I looked up and we were like sitting all having dinner. We always had dinner. That was the other thing, because I always cooked. Me, him, and Zoe sitting there, and it was like, okay, we made it through.
So it was a journey for him. It wasn't a moment, a turning point. It was a journey for him. It
was a journey that I am still in awe of, because that was 30-something years ago.
Wow.
And he is still sober.
30-something years sober.
30, how old is Zoe? 32, 33. So he's 40, 33.
Yeah. Why I ask, and thank you for being candid. We lost one of our sons to alcoholism. He passed October 2nd, 2021. October 1st was the celebration of our 48th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
And we were celebrating our anniversary the day before. The next day, my son and I are in a restaurant, my other son and I in a restaurant with Michael T., and we're having, lunch. And then all of a sudden I got a call. He had struggled with it for about 20 years. And that's been a problem on my wife's side of the family. Her father, her grandfather, her uncles, her cousins. And we warned our children. We sat them down. We said, look, there is a propensity, a genetic propensity to engage in addictive behavior. Mm-hmm. You guys have to know early what you can very well overcome by not entertaining it in the first place. And for whatever reason, at age 16, he started drinking. And we did everything we could. He tried to have a normal life, have a family, raise children, and all of that. Then he ended up incarcerated for DWI at that time. Came out clean, was strong for about 10 years, and then life wasn't happening the way he wanted it to. So he went back to that refuge. And, we did everything we could. We did the family intervention and all that to get him into a program. We had access to the best programs.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the will to live. And I will tell you, he he gave new meaning to a text that's a very familiar text. You're familiar with it, where the Apostle Paul says, I fought a good fight. I kept
the
faith.
I finished my course.
And I saw that my son lost the fight against the world, the flesh, and the devil. But he kept his faith in Christ. He kept his religious beliefs. He was actually having devotionals first thing in the morning while he was still drinking. And we couldn't reconcile that because, you're reading the Bible, you're listening to gospel music, you're doing all these things. You would think that that's pulling you out or at least convicting you about what you're doing. But he found himself stuck in a place that even though help was offered, he wasn't willing to take that help. So that's why I asked you about it. And, there are people who are listening to this, watching this conversation, who themselves or a loved one is struggling with it. And they can't be afraid of it, can't be ashamed of it, but be willing to open themselves up to help.
You spoke about this earlier too. It's the fact that mental illness takes a lot of forms. And I learned this, but God always knows don't. Anyway, it takes a lot of forms, but the addictive side of that is only one component.
Right.
And it's not just, I have found in the rehab facilities, of which I have been in plenty. I've been going and done classes and everything for theater, because, they have different days that they have people come in to entertain them. But there's a part that hopefully now that we are embracing how important dealing with mental challenges is, that will marry that rehab part, because they do a good job of getting you clean. But there's also, I felt then, and I still do, that the mental illness part of getting to the crux of what really, because most of the time it's chemical, which is why you're trying to sedate that thing anyway and get involved in a different kind of treatment for yourself, that you're just medicating yourself, that becomes a bigger picture. And I am determined that our people, Black men, we don't give them enough attention in the mental health field at an early enough age, and at an age when they can receive that there's nothing unmanly about it, that I know what it's like for me to take high blood pressure medicine. I hate it too. You feel different. And for that to change who they are, if they are on medication, becomes an issue, so they just don't take it. That's why so many people are out here walking the street right now, impaired, not getting the help that they should have. Yeah. We're getting ready to do that in California, though. Thank God for Gavin Newsom, because he is opening up mental health facilities now again. Yeah. After Reagan took them away.
Yeah, and it's important that we understand that it's okay to admit need.
Yes.
It takes courage to admit need. And not everyone is willing to take that courage.
Even to ourselves.
Yeah. Again, thank you for your candidness. I've done 2 panel discussions in D.C. with Health and Human Services around mental health specific to men of color, because it's a challenge getting men of color to acknowledge the need, first of all. That's why I said it takes courage, and then to do something about it, because it's not just acknowledging that you have a need, but you also have to do something about it. So thank you for sharing that place of challenge and vulnerability.
Maybe we can get Vice President Kamala to make that a part of her platform for the upcoming election.
Yeah,
this
speak
is
right
important.
to the camera. When you said that, speak right to the camera.
It's important. How's Pastor Karen?
She's doing well, and I'm glad you asked about my lovely wife, who loves you so much.
We love her.
She said, make sure you thank LaTanya for the financial support that you gave. You guys remembered when our firstborn son passed back in 2015.
Oh my God.
And that was heart-wrenching for us. And we, died from an asthma attack.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2 sons that we lost. And we made the decision to take responsibility for his 3 boys. Our granddaughter went with the mom who relocated to another state. But the 3 boys didn't want to leave New York. They wanted to stay. So we took them in and we raised them. And you and Sam contributed to a college fund where we had to raise money in order to get them through school.
Oh my God.
And I want to thank you. So I have it recorded so my wife will know that I did what I was supposed to do. But I want to thank you and Sam for donating. One of them is graduating in May of this year with a degree from St. Joseph College in pastoral care. That's another story.
What?
Because he was part of the camera crew during COVID when they shut down the churches. And he had a moment. Because, we would pre-record the services and then air them so people can watch them. And he had a moment, and he was in tears. And I said to him, are you okay? He said, yeah, I just had a moment. I said, okay, well, let's talk about it after the shoot. So he went into my office with my other son, who's now, stepping into the pastoral role. And he said, I had a moment. I said, well, tell me about the moment. He said, I realized that had my father not passed, I would not be doing what I'm doing right now. I would have most likely, highly likely, been doing something apart from my faith. He said, I'm not saying that my father had to die in order for me to do this, but I'm saying that one of the fruitful things that came out of my father's death is that I had this epiphany that this is where I'm supposed to be. That's when he made the decision to go to college, get his degree, and work in pastoral care. He's graduating in May of this year. The youngest son will be graduating in January of next year from Farmingdale University with his criminal justice degree.
Whoa.
And he's going into federal law enforcement.
Need him.
The 3rd son, just did his first documentary, and he is involved in film and the arts. So you invested in those young men, and we had no idea, my wife and I, that we would be raising children all over again, raising boys all over again. So thank you for asking, and thank you for
what a blessing, no.
contributing and investing in them.
God bless them.
So while we're talking about documentaries and directing, you made your directorial debut with The Piano Lesson. Tell us about that experience.
My Broadway directing debut.
That's right. That's right.
First of all, women, no woman had directed an August Wilson play on Broadway, which was a travesty in and of itself, but, men will out. It was the experience of a lifetime for me to actually be at the helm of such important actors, because we had important actors on the stage. And all of them came to deliver. John David Washington was a phenomenon as Boy Willie. He hadn't done a play, and for him to take this on was a testament to who he just knew that he was and his belief that God was going to show him what to do and hold him up. And he did. He did. That was a heck of a role to take on, but he did. And he was phenomenal. Sam was just a given. Micah Potts is a given. Danielle Brooks, who has now gone on to get her Oscar nomination for The Color Purple. April Mathis. It was just a cast of incredible actors who allowed me to tell them what to do. Because we took a play that was the approach to it, the vision that I had was from a female perspective, which was totally different to how we view our families. And I wanted it to sing that way, and that's what they allowed it to do. We are not, women, we have to look for the brighter side, the way to shore it up. It's not like this. And that's the one thing about that play that I kept saying. At the crux of it is the love of this family. And that's what we're going for. Let's look for the love. Each time in the argument, let's look for the love. When he shows up, let's look for the love. Because if you're looking for it, then that's going to be the standard that's going to hold your feet to the fire when you're cursing him out.
Right. It's
going to be ingrained in you in there. So I love that play. We recouped. That means that all the producers got their money back. Has now holding the record for the highest grossing play, August Wilson play on Broadway. My friend Denzel knows that he had held that record with Fences. He and Viola, and I said,
yeah,
past
that's
you.
like a little bit of a challenge.
I know.
But it gave John David an opportunity to continue to distinguish himself from his father.
And he did. You know what? I tell people all the time, yes, he's got the DNA. He's got his DNA. So there are going to be certain instances when you see a flick of D. I said, but this boy is off on his own thing. He stands on his own 2 feet. And I will go up against anyone who challenges that, because I watched John David. And if there was anyone who was going to say, oh, no, it would be me. I'm like, no, you're your own thing. He's got his own thing, and it's great.
What was it like directing Sam?
Challenging. It was challenging in the beginning. I want to know about
that challenge.
You know what? He lives in his persona. I'm Mr. Cool, and I'm like, I know everything. Yeah. I know everything. And I've been doing this long, and I got a bigger career, because he is one who will point that out. But the one thing about Sam is he knows the work, and he does the work. So he expects you to show up with the work. So, but he knows who I am too. So he knows I'm not coming in there that I don't have all my ducks in a row. But we see things differently, and he doesn't have any siblings. So here's a play about siblings. And I'm like, no, you got to look, when he reads you this letter, you got to think, is he like calling you out about having had married the woman that he was really talking to first? He said, that's not what's happening. He's just reading the letter. I said, no, it's between sibling rivalry for a minute. And he said, oh, right, because I don't know anything about that. And I said, well, I'm telling you. That's why I'm telling you. So it gets to be a little testy, like, no, that's why I'm trying to offer you a way into it a different way. And he would pause, because everybody's like waiting to see, is he going to like start cursing? And he would just say, okay. I said, okay, let's just remember, I am the director. So I'm just trying to help you get to a vision that I have. It was, because we had to go home after rehearsal.
That's exactly right.
We had to go home after rehearsals. And he said, so you're going to now think that you're going to tell me what to do there and tell me what to do here too. I said, so maybe I just won't tell you what to do at home anymore, because I got to tell you what to do in the play. It was no trade-off.
I didn't think so. I didn't think that was going to. He wasn't going to get that double blessing.
No, but he saw it in the end, and he was, he's not one to give out compliments, but he gave me some pretty strong compliments in the end. Like, wow.
That's what I was going to ask. How did it turn out? Where did he land after it was all over?
He saw the difference in what I was talking about versus how we started.
Yeah. Your biggest inspiration as an artist and as a human being, Who might that be?
It's been several people. It's been Ruby Dee, whom I saw at an early age. It's been Barbara Ann Tier, who I saw and interviewed when I was in college and got to see her work. Of course, it was Diane Carroll, who I came to love and adore, and who I actually ended up replacing in Raisin. That's how I got the job. And, true story, before she went to do the job, she talked to me about it. And I was like, oh, no, you're going to do that play. Little did I know, because she was concerned about her age and, how many lines, because there was a lot of lines in that play. And it just didn't work out for her then, and it worked out. Ended up with me, which was crazy. But there were people whom, oh God, Hattie McDaniel. People used to say, what's your favorite movie? They thought I was crazy too, because I said, Gone with the Wind. Yeah. I said, I'll sit and watch her. First of all, because she had so much to do in the play. But to see beyond and to see the reflection of my grandmother and all the women that I knew who were of that ilk, it just, it filled my heart. So that by the time I got to Kill a Mockingbird and had to play the housekeeper I said, oh no, I love these women. So I got no problem playing them. They said, but at this age that with a play I said, oh, I got no problem with that. I love housekeepers and maids. My grandmother was one. She was a good one and a cook too.
But you look great. You casually mentioned your age.
Oh, 74.
Early in our conversation.
He's 75.
And we're living longer. Technology, medicine, healthcare, those who have access to it. That's another fight. That's part of our struggle. But you are today an aggregate of all of the knowledge, understanding, wisdom, experiences, network of relationships that you've gained over the years, which makes you most valuable now than at any point in time in your life. And I say that to you because that's exactly how I see myself. What's next for you?
I'm directing LaBelle, which is the Patti LaBelle, Nona Hendrix, Sarah Dash musical. And Nona is helming it. We're in the process of trying to get the script done and getting that done, and a play called Having Our Say, which is going to be a revival of the Delaney sisters that was on Broadway with Mary Alice and Gloria Foster several years ago with Whoopi Goldberg and Felicia Rashad.
I'm looking forward to more.
I'm looking forward to more too. I said I'm going to leave here empty. When I'm gone, I'm going to be empty.
Well, I don't know. I think you're going to be very, very full, so full. But you're going to pour a lot out. And that's exactly what our faith teaches us. Identify your gift, find where it can be used, and make a difference. And you'll discover meaning and purpose. Thank you for an incredible conversation.
Thank you. And thank you for walking the earth.
And thank you for who you are and what you've contributed. In closing, well, that does it for this episode of the A.R. Bernard Show. I want to thank you for spending some time with us. And if you liked what you heard, please, of course, subscribe, like, share, and tell a friend. I'll be back every week with incredible guests like LaTanya Richardson Jackson. And I want to thank LaTanya for being a part of the conversation here today at the intersection of faith and culture. I want to thank my production team, of course, and most importantly, I want to thank you, my audience, for tuning in. Until next time,